Oh my God, I almost had a perfect intro.
Sundays with Sin is sponsored by Sweet Perfection. Sweet Perfection is a family and veteran owned small business that sells freeze dried candy. They have a number of options on their website, and the best part is, if you want something they don't have listed, you can contact them directly and make a special order. Go to Sweet Perfection, PUFFECTION.com and use code SINX at checkout for 10% off your order. That's SIN, SINNX. Welcome in, babies, to episode 40 of Sundays with Sin. I do want to start off by letting you guys know that currently we are in a tornado. Was it a watch or a warning? I'm not sure. Whichever one it is where they touched down, we're in one right now. Me. So if for whatever reason that this yeah, no kidding. We went ahead and we got past the flooding and now we're dealing with the other element, air. But if for whatever reason, if this broadcast cuts out, we will reschedule it for a later date, but we're going to try it anyway. With that being said, I have none other than the lovely guest. It's Wheelman here with me. Wheels, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people of the community.
Hey guys, it's Wheels. Part-time content creator here on Kick. Lover of all things, good vibes, great times, and just making people laugh. I am a disabled content creator. I actually was born with a disability called spina bifida, which essentially means that I was born with a hole along my spine, where it was open and had to be surgically corrected and closed. Now that being said, that was right at birth, was hospitalized, and was told that I would not make it past 15 days of life. Well, my family was told, don't get attached. He's not going to make it past 15 days. And that's basically where my life started. And been creating content for about 3-4 years now. Started off on Facebook, moved over to Twitch, and now find myself here on Kick and enjoying it. Mainly play games like Call of Duty, Fortnite. Used to play a little bit of Apex, but I've always been the type to, if I find a game that's entertaining to me, I'm gonna try it out. But yeah, that's about me.
So you said you started content creating. You said 3-4 years ago. Is that correct?
Yes.
On Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook gaming. Did that
Mhm.
for about a year, give or take.
I liked
then-
Facebook dating. I'm really sad that they nixed that. Like I liked
Yeah.
watching on Facebook because like that was my go-to like social media app. So it would have been cool
Right.
just to keep like my gaming all there too, so I didn't have to go
Yeah.
in between different fucking apps depending on what I wanted to do, you know?
Right.
You already had like the Instagram stories or the Snapchat stories or whatever, you always
Yup.
had Messenger already on there, like then they had reels and stuff. It's like, why don't we just keep the fucking the gaming on there too? That'd have been like way easier.
I enjoyed it, and I liked a couple of certain features that you don't really find on here, right? So, like for example, actually seeing the person behind the username, right? So, like when you came in, they come in as that person's profile. So, like let's say it was like John came in, I would know, oh, this is my boy John, or this person, and it helps you with building that connection. It helps you with kind of gaining that sense of community because you know who's there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Why I guess let's see here. I don't know which direction to take this. Usually when people introduce themselves, they don't give me all of the information all at once. And so I'm
My
just like, okay,
bad.
well, where the fuck do I go now? Hold on. No, you're fine. You're fine. So let's start off with, let's just continue on the streaming aspect, and then we'll dive on into the differently abled aspect.
Okay.
Whenever you, or for starters, why did you pick up streaming in the first place? What was it about streaming? When did you first see it? What gave you I'm banning Shaka. What gave you what gave you Like what enticed you to be like, you know what? I want to do this. Talk me through that.
Okay. Well, it's actually started off with a group of people I'm actually no longer friends with. Um, they had been streamers at the time, and I would kind of start to hang out in their chats and kind of, watch them, saw what they were doing, and it called my attention because I've always been a gamer. I've always been somebody that likes being competitive,
Mhm.
and um, but I've always wanted to get a message out of, I'm not one that's gonna take no for an answer. And so
Yeah,
I wanted to prove that I can do it despite, the challenges that I've faced and then the things that I've been through.
I love that. That's actually really sweet. That's actually really sweet. After you left Facebook Gaming, did you come right to Kick or did you go to Twitch?
No, I was actually on Twitch for about 2 years of
Okay.
that.
So you
And
weren't on
then
Facebook Gaming for long.
not
Gotcha.
really.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I tried it. It kind of just, I wasn't gaining any traction because at that time I was still brand new to streaming and didn't really know like what steps to take, whether it be like
Mhm.
posting offline content or like branding and things like that. So I was just kind of just hitting the go live and just playing video games at that time. And
Yeah.
if I caught a cool clip, cool. If not, then I just kind of went about my day. Uh, I, then I transitioned over to Twitch, and that's where really started getting my knowledge of, like not just how to conduct myself, how to brand, how to network, how to start posting content, or kind of getting my name out there in a way
Mhm.
that I would be proud of.
You mentioned that you took clips, like if you had a good clip or a good shot or whatever. So what games or what do you mainly do on your platform? What do you mainly stream?
So I tend to do a lot of battle royales right now, just because those have been kind of catching my attention. Right now, I can't seem to get off of Call of Duty, despite how much of negativity it is brought and how people have started to go against it. I still have fun
Everybody
with it.
has a love-hate relationship with Call of Duty, I swear. There's a love-hate
Exactly.
relationship with Call of Duty. Some people want to
Hmm.
jump the bandwagon of ixnaying it because of what happened with Nick Merckx. And then some people were like, well, there are people who've been like not necessarily boycotting Call of Duty, but they've been calling it trash for like a decade now, yet they still download the new fucking Call of Duty every damn year.
I,
So
I'm that person.
I know. That's why I said it. And Troa is also that person because he trash talks all the time. I don't know if he got the latest Call of Duty, but I do know he did purchase. I don't think he even purchased Vanguard, actually. I know for a fact he purchased Cold War, though.
I liked Cold War. Cold War was my first experience into zombies.
Hmm.
Fun fact.
Mine was Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 Zombie is top tier. The only other one that I could say would even compare with an experience is Black Ops 3, the way Black Ops 3 was.
Hmm.
Black Ops 2 Zombie is like you can't beat it, honestly. Like there's no topping the experience that I felt when I was playing that. That was actually the game that my brother and I really connected on. My brother Jake, the one who got me streaming. That
Right.
was our game. We would
Ooh.
stay up and play that game all the fucking time where Christine, my mom, was just like fucking pulling out her hair and she's like, y'all the fucking video games. And I'm like, well, I can't just fucking go ride a bike with him now, can I?
Yeah, that's definitely relatable because I have family in the same way, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
it,
So anyway, you
especially
play. Oh, go
on
ahead.
my off
Sorry.
I was just gonna mention that, especially on my off days, where I can easily be up 2, 3, 4 in the morning. My
Absolutely
mom.
not.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
an old. Listen, I don't even have my children tonight.
Mhm.
My ass will be in bed. Well, I'll be in bed a little bit later tonight because Negan gets home late. So like I'll wait. Like I may take like a little nap or whatever. But like he'll call me. I tell him always call me on the way home, and I'll make sure he has a hot plate of food waiting for him. So
Love
if
that.
he wasn't working late though, my ass would be going to bed after this fucking podcast. Are you kidding me? I love my sleep. You will not catch me staying up late playing fucking video games. You guys are
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's me 100%.
I'm not a
But
gamer. I don't I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
So battle royales are like your go-to right now, right? So you're really feeling the battle
Yeah.
royales. I saw you've been playing a lot of Fortnite lately. I have to get a game of Fortnite in with you. I shouldn't even say
Yeah.
lately. You were playing it for a minute, but I feel like you switched more to COD. Or even like
Mhm.
teetering between the two lately, you and Shaka specifically.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. It's kind of that phase of when COD becomes too much, I switch over to
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite for a little bit just because I feel like Fortnite is such a more of a vibe. It's like a
Yeah.
easier, more chill, like and especially if I'm streaming, right? Because I one thing I like love to do is interact with my chat. I can't always interact with chat just because of how fast paced I feel like Rebirth goes versus like Fortnite. And so when I'm on Fortnite, I could definitely like get some shots off and then like look at chat and then keep going.
Dog, I can't interact with chat no matter what game I fucking play. Because if I'm interacting with chat, my gameplay is ass. And if I'm not interacting with chat, I'm focused on the game. My gameplay is still ass, but
Hmm.
I'm more focused on the gameplay. So I there's no happy medium for me. We switched to podcasting because I think if I'm not mistaken, you were a mod during the time, but the mods had decided that I was better talking than I was playing video games.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah. Yeah, you plead that fifth, motherfucker. You plead that fifth.
Definitely was a mod at the time.
Have you ever thought of doing a different style of content? And by that, I mean, ready? So
Hmm.
you have some people like myself who do podcasts, right? There's not a whole lot, but there's quite a few, right?
Right.
There's a few of us that do it.
Mhm.
And then you have people like Denny who do graphic design or stocks that do graphic design on stream. And like myself, I've done like overlays and things like that.
Right.
Have you ever thought of broadening the horizon really and doing a different type of content that you may be able to offer to people like your IRL talents or hobbies or whatever into your streaming world?
Actually, yes. So, and that's actually a great segue into something that I'm working towards here soon. Is I would actually like to start posting offline content of just overall stories. So, and what I mean by that is just kind of like in a just chatting format of
Yeah.
me going about telling stories that happen in my everyday life as a differently abled person. And I'll give you one just prime example of a story of when I went out with a couple of friends to a bar and just simply had to use the restroom, and it wasn't ADA compliant. So what happens is prior to me needing to use the restroom, my boys and I were just joking around about like how I could have the keys to the city if I really wanted to, just by getting places and establishments shut down that aren't ADA compliant or that aren't the best adapted for people with my conditions. And sure enough, so I go to the restroom and try to close the stall. It's too small, so I can't do it. I go back outside and I run into the manager. I'm like, "Excuse me, are you the manager?" She goes, "Yes, I'm actually the general manager." I was like, "Hey, just to let you know, you guys aren't ADA compliant. I actually can't use y'all's restroom." Her face went flush immediately, knowing that that's a lawsuit,
Oh my
and
God.
I
So
can
how many times do you run into places that don't have, I guess they call them I mean, they still call it handicap, obviously.
right.
But how many on average, how many times do you run into a place that doesn't have, um, how do you fucking say it? What is the word that I'm trying to think of? Handy cable, handicap accessible. Hand,
So like handicap accessible?
is that it? I thought there was like one
Mhm.
word. Okay, maybe that's it. Yeah.
No,
How many times do you run into that issue?
so thankfully in my area, not as often. Um, there's
Well,
been
that's
very,
good.
yeah, like very fewer and far between instances, that being one of them. But it's instances of that where I can like for that being just one example, it's other people that tend to create these situations rather than like establishments, if
What do
that
you mean by
makes sense.
that?
So like let's say I just go out in public and like I'm at the mall or something. I've often found like not even little kids, but just adults like kind of looking funny or like staring. Like I don't know if it's just the fact that they aren't used to seeing people out in wheelchairs that are or carry themselves with confidence, or like, for example, I go out to bars by myself. I go out to the mall by myself. I don't tend to need
Yeah.
assistance. I
Were
don't have
you
to have. Go ahead.
did you say kids or adults look at you weird?
So it's both, but I would expect that from a kid because they don't have that knowledge. But
Right. 'Cause I was gonna
it's
say, like,
it's
my child's just learned about, so he's become more curious about the world, and he
Mhm.
actually had made a statement about he was cracking a joke saying that he like drew this monster. He's like, imagine if that was a human with like four arms or two heads or whatever. And then he made like another statement about like how he was going to go ahead and like ixnay the person or whatever. And he's like, because that wouldn't be human. And I was like, well, Tobes, I'm like, that's actually, there are some people who are born differently. They're born this way. And he's more accustomed to wheelchair because his uncle is in a wheelchair. So he learned about that,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But I've noticed that, like, as a parent, unless we have these talks with our kids, they're completely oblivious to differently abled people. And that's not just limited to people in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
He didn't know that dwarfism was a thing, but he wasn't aware of that. He wasn't aware that conjoined twins were a thing. He learned about Hasbullah, for instance, because I brought that up because Denny, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like one that's like well known, here, check this out. And some people can look at that as like, like, oh, she's finding, differently abled people or whatever, and like, making fun of them or whatever to her kid. I'm like, no, but I'm pulling this up because I'm trying to educate my 7.5-year-olds because he just made a statement that if somebody looks different than him, he's going to deem them as a monster. And like, that's not the case. I
Right.
never realized that I would have to have this talk with my children. I didn't know this was something that I had to teach them. You know what I mean? Because like I don't remember my mother ever sitting me down and talking to me about differently abled people.
Right.
So I didn't think of anything of it. But I also, on the other hand of it, I don't think that I think I was kind of just accepting from the get go because you got to think my brother has been in a wheelchair since we were really really young. So
Okay.
I think that that could be a reason why my mom never had the talk with me about differently able people because we never needed to. And so, but yeah, I had to. I had to sit down my 7-year-old and talk with him. I haven't with my daughter. I think that, and there's no offense, like this isn't any offense to men, but I think it's just different. Like females are more like empathetic or understanding of things where they kind of have a better sense of like their surroundings. Whereas
Right.
men are just like from a young age, like you're just boys at heart. No matter how old you are, you're always going to be a boy at heart. And you're just like fucking go. And so I think that's why I
Right.
had to have a talk with my son, and not my daughter yet. I'm not saying I wouldn't have a talk with her about it because, you know. But
Right.
anyway,
Definitely.
just something from my perspective, what I'm saying, of not being differently abled and of raising children in this world and like trying to, I don't know, man, it's tough. I'm just trying to make my children aware of their fucking surroundings and just raise decent fucking human beings. Like that's all I'm trying to do really at the end of the
Right.
day. Like that's it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, and to your point, I do feel like it is something that it depends on the upbringing of the person, because I have noticed, right? So a lot of times it's younger boys that'll be looking versus like the little girls. They just kind of go on about their way. But
Yeah.
something that I've learned to do since I was younger as well is, I'll politely go up to them and to their parents and say, hey, it looks like your child may have questions for me regarding, why I am this way. Is it okay if I allow them that time to ask? And of course, some people are reserved. They decline, and I'm like, okay, thank you, have a nice day. And but it's something that I like to do is to bring that awareness that I'm a completely normal person, just like anybody else. The
Mhm.
only difference is I do things a little bit differently. That's about it.
Yeah. So talk me through a bit about your diagnosis. So you said it's spina bifida, is that what it was?
Spina bifida, the official term being spina bifida occulta, as a
Occulta?
yes,
Okay.
essentially, hole within the spinal column that needs to be surgically corrected, and it
Okay.
only happens in about 1 out of 2,000 people.
Oh,
So
okay.
Um, so with that being said, that was my first experience as like straight out when I was born was need to get him into surgery, correct this. It was either get that done and have a chance to live or
Mm-hmm.
not and then naturally just die from it. Um,
So how old were you when you had the first surgery?
I would say within a couple of weeks or even a couple of days.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, and in talking with my family, the first couple of months I spent in NICU, without even being able to have any contact with my family, my mom, grandparents, everybody would just kind of see me through a glass window or even the like incubator thing where
Yeah.
like you just stick your hand in
So
at that time.
how long were you in the NICU for? Do they like, because
Oh,
obviously when this is going on, you're
mhm,
you're an infant, so you don't remember this happening, the first surgery, right? And
yeah.
so you're kind of going based off of what you know from family. Has your family been really open about the stories of when you were first born and like your surgeries and stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my mom and I are completely like best friends. We actually talk about things like that all the time. And especially when I get down on myself about things,
Yeah.
my mom tends to use that as a motivator is to say, "Hey, look at everything you've already surpassed and been through.
No.
What's this small instance, or what's this small circumstance?
Hmm.
What's to say you can't move on from it?"
I
So
love that.
yeah, so
I love that you and your mom are super close too. And I kind of knew that already, getting to know you outside of this podcast. Obviously, we've known each other for a couple months now.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I knew that you and your mom had a close relationship. I absolutely love that you guys have formed, like you said, like your best friends.
Hmm.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of envious of that. I really wish that I had that with my own mother. I really do. Because there's so many things that I would like to actually like talk to her about and know, whether it be about like my childhood or like about her upbringing and stuff. So
Right.
it's really cool that you have that with her.
Yeah, she's definitely one of my greatest influences and role models. So I have to say that for sure.
So talk me through of what, obviously not what you remember of your first surgery, but what you've been told of your first surgery. So you're a couple days, maybe a couple weeks old. Initially, they had said to your, did they know prior to your birth if you had any, um and I know it may come off as derogatory, but this, from my experience of being pregnant, they do say screening for deformities, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
did your, yeah. I know you knew that. I had to say that for the listeners later on and for people in chat who want to, like, because we're on the
Try
front
to
page now. So, they might be kind
try to
of,
cancel you like I do every other week.
exactly, exactly.
uh,
um, but did your mother have any inclination before she went into labor with you that you had any health complications at all?
so I believe she did. I believe it was actually caught prior to my birth. So they knew that something was happening, just not entirely sure as to what at that point. Because it was hard to diagnose while I was still in the womb. So definitely, I would, from what I was told, they knew something was wrong, just not to the extent of what it was. Just because it
Okay,
was
gotcha.
a
Because
little bit
how old are you
difficult.
again?
30.
Okay. Yeah, the time whenever our parents were having kids, I'm a year younger. And the time
Okay.
when um our parents were having, kids, it was like you getting an ultrasound and knowing what gender you were having was like completely fucking unheard of. That was like some bougie ass shit. Not
Oh
the every
yeah,
not everyday Joe Schmo can know. And
for sure.
now it's like everybody knows what they're having and all the complications ahead of time. We're getting all the screening done while we're pregnant. And the fad now is to not know what you're having until you give birth or whatever. So it's funny to see how it's like complete opposites to whenever we were born. So
Definitely.
they knew something, right? They knew there were some type of complications. They had some type of inclination that something wasn't fully, completely normal per se, but they
Mhm.
didn't know the extent of it.
Right. And
Okay. So
so
talk me through that.
So along with that, just came, natural birth. My mom's water ended up breaking one night. She
Mm-hmm.
gets rushed to the hospital where um, I actually ended up having to go through an emergency section just to have me, because they realized that something was wrong. Um, and so I get, I have coming into the world, um, and from there, this is the part that always kind of not makes me laugh, but it always makes me reflect. Right? Is doctors back then saying he's not gonna make it past 15 days. Like, are you a fortune teller? How would you know
Yeah.
someone's will to live, somebody's life expectancy, or the love and support that that family is going to provide them to make sure that they make it?
So let me ask you this, right? So you made the comment about like their will to live, the love and support they have and stuff. So obviously there's science behind where they can, determine the life expectancy, right?
Right, for sure.
Back then when we were born, it's not as accurate as like it could be right now, right?
Hmm.
But my question is your family, is it, how do I word this? Your family, are they very religious of it? Were they really relying on like their religion, their hopes, their prayers, stuff like that, like spirituality being there for you and like hoping for a miracle essentially? Because I mean, to be realistic here, compared to what the scientists, doctors, people who went to school for this, what they had said, was going to be the outcome of your life, you surpassed it by 30 fucking years, you know?
Absolutely,
So like you are like quite honestly the definition of what people would deem, religious people specifically would deem a miracle,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
And I will say that, yeah, my family does have a religious background. Um, we were born and raised Catholic, and I will say a prayer had a lot to do with it. I know, for example, and for a fact, in talking to my mom, my grandma, my aunt, who's in your chat right now, they never stopped praying. They never gave up. They always were, believing in me
Hmm.
that I would overcome it.
I'm not particularly religious. I'm going through like this whole fucking thing in my life where I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out what I believe in, what I don't believe in. My 7-year-old is telling me that he believes in Jesus and stuff, and that's a difficult kind of thing to deal with because I'm just like, how do I allow him to go learn about that, on his own? Or like I have to make the sacrifice and go take him to church myself. And I'm not a big fan. So
For sure.
I'm in that kind of, so I'm looking on the outsider's perspective right now about how your family is, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
kind of seeing, I mean, it'd be hard for anybody to not believe if they had gone through what you and your family had went through, you know? Because that's nothing short of a miracle. And I'm not a religious person, but I mean,
Definitely.
just knowing your story, knowing what you went through, your family went through, and knowing where you're at today, I mean, that is like, that's enough to make anybody question. If you weren't believing before, hearing this now, it's like you might actually start believing.
Yeah. And I will say that that's something that even myself to this day, like I was raised Catholic, but I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm the most perfect Catholic person ever because I'm not. I have
Yeah.
my beliefs. I believe in what I do and who I am,
Mhm.
and that's enough to get me through the day. You know, because at the end of the day, that's just what I've always done. Is I've never been one to particularly give up on myself. I just keep going and know that if I have made it through what I made it through at birth, I'm here for a reason.
So let's go back to this, right? So you
Yes.
you have, how many surgeries have you had?
To
Have you only
date,
had that? Okay.
46.
46?
Yes.
Like 4, 6?
Yes.
Jesus fuck, dude. You've had like a fucking us. I mean, you average, that's like 1.5 surgeries a year.
Hmm. Some of which
Dude.
I actually had before year one.
You had 46 surgeries before you turned a year old?
No, no, no. 12
Oh.
before a year old.
You had
Uh,
12 surgeries before you turned a year?
mhm. Yes.
Holy fuck. Okay, so talk me through this, man.
So a lot of it was again the spinal bifida surgery, which
Yeah.
entails the correction of the spine, making sure it's properly closed up.
Yeah.
Um,
Were the others like, are these more, did you develop like health complications outside of spina bifida because of spina bifida? Because, like,
so I, along with it, I have what is called hydrocephalus, which
yeah, okay.
is a
The
shunt
swelling, it's the swelling in the brain. You have like extra, like fluid in your
fluids.
brain.
Right. So I had to have a shunt put in. Um, and I've also had leg surgeries just because of the way that where my legs were formed when I was born. Had to get
Mm-hmm.
those corrected to get them straightened out. And so those kind of details just kind of added up to being 12 surgeries before year one. So
Jesus fuck.
yeah.
With with Jake, he didn't get any surgeries though until we were um I think he was like 13, 14, and I was like 12, 13.
Hmm.
But with him, his disease, like the reason why I worded it like that about asking if there were complications, because of spina bifida, is because for Jake, it was um it was like the Friedreich's ataxia, right? The main disease that he had ended up causing other complications. So he got a back surgery because the Friedreich's ataxia had caused him to have MS and curve his spine, right? And so the Friedreich's ataxia went ahead and weakened his heart and he caught an infection. And then now he's in congestive heart failure. So I was curious if the spina bifida and the complications with that disease had opened up other avenues for other diseases or other complications which required the surgeries.
Yes. So with that, it does open to um, problems with like bodily functions sometimes in different cases.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically speaking to my surgeries, I'm a literal walking medical book or rolling medical book. So to answer your question, a lot of the surgeries that I've had, yes, are related to the condition. They are related to um like bladder augmentations. I've had leg surgeries. I've
Wait,
had
you said bladder augmentations. Can you
yes.
dumb that down for me? Because I'm dyslexic and just stupid.
That's okay. So this made my bladder bigger because I had
Oh,
problems
okay.
with it.
So, okay, gotcha. So enlargence of bladder. Gotcha.
Mhm. Yep. Trying to think. I've had a lot. So head surgeries. Spent my ninth birthday in the hospital getting my shunt revised. That was fun because I almost
Getting
died that
your,
time.
you said getting your what?
The shunt had to get revised because at that time I had outgrown the length of the cord that they had put in me.
Back up. I'm so sorry. What's the shunt?
Yes.
I
So
think I'm stupid.
from the hydrocephalus.
Okay. Okay,
So
gotcha.
I have what is called a shunt in my head, which
Okay.
helps control that fluid from going into my
Yes.
head and into the brain. And so at that time when I was 9, the tube that I had since birth was too short, and they ended up having to enlarge the cord. But at that time, I actually became even more paralyzed than I am now, and got to the point where I truly couldn't even move. Um, like I was with a family member at the time. My mom was at work. I
Hmm.
let them know I was like, "Hey, I'm not feeling too well," and they called my mom. She gets home instantly and was like, "Hospital now."
Yeah.
Rushes me to the emergency room, and they're like, "You got him here just in time because he could have died from this." So they
Jesus.
immediately admit me, get me into emergency surgery, and I spent my ninth birthday in the hospital.
Oh my God.
But it was super cool though, because like at that time I had family from Panama where I'm from. Um,
Hmm.
like they actually came down to visit me and spend time with me and like hang out. So like they all made it a positive experience just because like they did like a little birthday party inside the hospital room with
So
cake and ice cream and everything.
I love that. So were you in Panama when this happened?
No, I was in Louisiana.
Okay. So you're from Panama though, right?
Yes, born and raised until the age of 4, and that was when I came to the United States.
Sorry, I was reading Tubbsy's comment. Yeah, no, this Tubbsy's. I'm going to read Tubbsy's comment, and then we're going to talk on that for a second. So he says, "I think this segment is incredible. So many people are so afraid to ask questions to those who are bound to a wheelchair. The fact that Wheelman is so open with all of this is so insightful and awesome. This is great." And this is exactly how we wanted this to go. Wheels and I have been talking for a while now about getting him on the podcast, and we've had so much shit happen. I wanted to actually like sit down, get him in the books to where I was able to sit down with no kids, with no Negan, no obviously I couldn't control Mother Nature. I'm so sorry a tornado decided to happen right now. But Wheels and I wanted to go over this because he wanted to do like an introduction video, right? He wanted to do some sort of
Yes,
introduction video to his followers about but no, we
there's
wanted to do this because like there's for starters, there's so much hate in the streaming world towards differently abled people. So we talked about how you had 12 surgeries before you turned 1, and we talked about how the spina bifida caused other complications where you had to have these surgeries. Like one of them, for instance, was straightening out your legs, right? And then you
yes
had the, what'd you call it? Was it a splint? Is that what you said? Or no, it was a
the
shunt.
shunt. Yes,
Shunt.
yes.
I was close. I was a vowel
You can't
off.
you can't see it, but it goes down here.
So that goes in your that's in your head, and that helps with the hydrocephalus.
Yes,
Is that
and it goes
correct?
yes from the
Okay.
head down to the stomach.
Down to the stomach. So what does that do? Or I'm assuming that's actively like making sure there's not a buildup of fluid in your brain.
Yes, correct. So it basically,
Okay.
as you said, just make sure that there's not fluid going in there, because that could cause death or uh, I forgot what the term for it was, but uh, when like a stroke, but to the brain, forget what the
A
term
stroke
is.
to the brain? An
Essentially,
aneurysm?
and thank you. There you go.
Oh,
That's what.
okay.
Yes,
I've been
that's
watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy and New Amsterdam's. Like I'm basically a professional right now.
a
What have been the other surgeries that you've had? Like how many surgeries? So between 1 and now 30. When's the last time you had to have a surgery?
thankfully many years ago. I think the last was over 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been ever since probably toward the end of high school. I've been relatively healthy, which is a blessing. I haven't had a lot of medical like things come up.
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a huge, that's a fucking, I don't know why you're saying that like it's so sad. Like that's like an accomplishment. Like, fuck yeah, I've been healthy. Let's
No,
go. You
it's
know, like
more
fist
so
bump that shit, dog.
it's more a surprise if anything, just because I had to think back to like realistically, like, wait, when was the last time I had anything done? Like, yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while. So no, yeah, it's 100%
that's a
great.
good thing though. I could understand how like it might be kind of like confusing in a sense because you're just like, oh, when's the last time? And you're like, shit, when is the last time?
Yeah,
You know, like you're like kind of concerned for a second. You're like, wait, when did I, what happened? When was that?
yeah,
You know, like I
right.
can understand that. I can understand that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no,
No,
no. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. Finish, finish,
No,
finish.
I was just gonna say it's I guess ironic because like you would think that I'd be kind of paranoid in a sense of like, oh, when is gonna be the next time, or when is
Yep.
like when is something gonna go wrong? No, I'm just here. I'm just enjoying whatever happens.
Before I go for it, what sports did you play?
Okay, so I'm gonna list out the sports, but I'm also gonna mention two honorable mentions that are like events that I've done. Um, so I've done basketball, football, football, like American football. I've done soccer. I've done softball. And the honorable mentions are water skiing and surfing.
So when you did these sports, right? So
Hmm.
I have been in like my both my high schools that I went to, we've had teams that were um well, we didn't really have we in high school we had a basketball team. We didn't have any other sports teams, but I know there are teams available outside of the school district for the differently abled, right?
Right.
So for instance, if you're in a wheelchair, they have sports like certain leagues designated to you, right? So
Hmm.
like you may not be able to play with the school per se, but through the county or whatever, they have an X amount to go ahead and join it and play the sports. So
Right.
the sports that you played, were you playing in a specific differently able team, or were you just playing on the normal school team, but you were the one in the wheelchair?
So it was never in school. In my area, our school districts don't actually offer that as an opportunity.
Yeah.
This might how much I should try to advocate for it when I was younger.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's the case, and it's still the case. Yep.
Yep. So it, where I am, without doxing myself, is actually super cool because we have the world's first differently abled amusement park.
Oh, talk more about that.
It's called Morgan's Wonderland,
Wonderland. Okay, got it.
and as I mentioned, it's actually the first differently abled amusement park dash water park in the country.
Okay.
And
Oh,
yeah, so it's actually they provide a unique opportunity where any differently abled person gets in free, and
oh.
their companions or like anybody who's like the parents or like the able-bodied person, they'd have to pay.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. They gotta make their money somehow. To be honest.
Exactly, but
And
it's
the- and
super
and
cool.
to be honest, from a marketing perspective, if you offer it free to differently abled people, then obviously there's going to have to be somebody along the line that is actually abled to bring the differently abled into the place, and that's where you buck. So from a marketing perspective, I understand it, but if you think about it, you have one abled person per every differently abled person. They're paying technically half the price that a normal person would pay if you think about it.
Yeah,
That's cool. Actually
yeah.
able. Tebsy, I'm trying to fucking figure out the words. I'm trying to. Okay, all right. Enjoy prison. Okay. Wheels, can you go on the record and say, has anything that I said tonight offended you as a differently abled person?
No, none.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just need that on record. Also, I'm clipping that for eternity. So anytime you try canceling me on Twitter, I'm gonna post this.
Okay.
Wait, let me clip it. Hold on, let me clip it.
Chat, delete it.
Got it. We're good. No, we're good. Chat can't delete
Uh,
that. That's a backtrack, bitch.
so as I mentioned, yeah, that's the first park of
Mm.
its kind, and with that, the designer dash owner of the establishment is a powerful person who has a daughter who's differently abled themselves. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, and so her name is Morgan.
The owner of this establishment has a daughter named Morgan, you said?
Mm-hmm. And it's Morgan's Wonderland.
Morgan's Wonderland. Is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. With that park
Yeah.
came the opportunity for me to play sports. So they have a program called Straps. Uh, Let me see
What's
here.
called Straps?
Yes,
STRAPS.
yes.
Okay.
It's South Texas Regional Adaptive and Parasports is what it stands for. And with them, I was able to competitively play all of the sports that I mentioned. After trying them for the first time, I'm always been a very competitive person. I've always
Yeah.
loved being active and playing sports. Like I grew up watching soccer, I grew up watching basketball, and always wanted to be like them. And yeah, it was a good time because I got to
That's
play
pretty cool.
as a teenager, going up adults damn near double my size. And
So you went. Did you go against? So I'm sorry. I
mhm,
backtrack here. So when you said that because of this, the guy, the amusement park, all that, right? And so you got
mhm,
into sports. Whenever you were
yes,
playing the sports, did you play against other differently abled people, or were you playing against what did you call it? Able bodies? Is that what it
yes,
is?
yeah. So
Okay.
there's
So
a running.
did you play against differently abled people, or did you play against abled bodies?
So there's a rolling joke in our community of
Rolling.
disabilities.
Got it.
hmm Um,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's not disabled, or in a wheelchair, we call y'all ABs for able bodies. So we would play, and to answer your question, we would actually play against both ABs and differently abled
DBs.
people.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
DAs. Is it DA? Was
No, it's
that
just
like, is
different.
that what
No,
you, okay.
it's just differently abled. Yeah. So, and it's cool because we open up the doors to anyone who wants to participate and learn.
So
So,
you're playing against people who are differently abled and the able bodies.
yep. And they would
So,
strap their ass down to a chair and keep it pushing.
oh, okay. So that's what I was going to ask next. So did they, because they were playing against differently able people, did they have to get into a wheelchair?
Yes.
How was going to school for you?
That was interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I first started school, I actually got placed into special ed, not because of my disability, but because I didn't know how to speak English.
Well, because how old are you when you moved to the States?
4.
Oh, you were 4 when you moved in.
Mm-hmm.
So when were you placed into special ed?
Mm, kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
and not to discredit like anybody with this statement, but it kind of makes sense, if you're not speaking English going into kindergarten, first grade or whatever, it would make sense to put you. I know special ed has like a huge stigma on it, but honest to God, like I really applaud the teachers who work in the special education department because they provide a more one-on-one communication
Yeah.
with their students,
Yeah. So, and that was only for a few months because I literally learned English like that.
You
Uh,
did?
yeah. Within a couple months, I
Really?
was fluent in both Spanish and English.
How did you do in other subjects in school though?
Good. I actually, and again, yeah, no, I alluded and mentioned it earlier, but I had a lot of support growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it was my mom, my aunt, uh, my other aunt who's also here, well, not here, but here in the States, my grandparents who are actually like a second set of parents for me. Matter of fact, I actually just got to spend time with my grandma this weekend, because she came down from Panama.
When you moved to the States from Panama, was it
Mhm.
your parents who moved? Is that what happened? Your parents moved and then you
So,
moved, like you were moving with them, or was it your grandparents who moved?
it was my mom. My mom's always been a single parent. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So what had happened is my other aunt was military, and she was actually stationed in Louisiana at the time.
Yeah.
And so my mom, seeking better opportunities for me, took a chance and moved down there and established a life for herself, working, job after job, getting an apartment for us, getting us set
Yeah.
up. And at that time, I stayed with my grandparents for about a year or so, maybe, while she was getting everything ready. And then comes the time where I come down and I'm reconnected with her. And, not to say that she didn't call me every single day, and, be there and everything as she's always been. But that's why I feel like I'm also very close to my grandparents, is the fact that they were also molded who I am, especially my grandfather, who I don't even call him my grandfather, I call him my dad. And anybody who's known me and had a conversation about that with me, they know that that's the man that raised me and
Yeah.
was my only father figure or male figure in my life consistently.
Can I ask you,
Mhm.
did your did something happen to your father, or did your father just decide not to be a dad?
He decided not to be a father before I even came along.
Mm. Was that So before you came along, was that like a one night stand with your mom, or was that a he found out she was pregnant and he left?
So it wasn't. They were in a relationship. They were dating. Things just kind of didn't work out for them,
Yeah.
and they went their separate ways.
Yeah.
I actually, funny enough, he attend. Well, when I was 18,
Yeah.
his family actually tried to reconnect with me,
Oh.
and his sister messaged me, and his mom messaged me on Facebook, and we're like, "Hey, don't know if you know who we are, but hi." And I was like, "I know exactly who you guys are," and so I slept on it, and then the next morning I approached my mom and I was like, "Hey, listen." She's like, "Stop. I already know what you're gonna ask. I already know what's going on. This
Yeah.
is on you. You're 18 years old. This is on you. Whatever decision you decide to take, I respect." So I was like, "Okay." So at that time, I end up trying to build a relationship with them. Started talking to them a little bit, getting to know them a little bit because they had seemed to take an actual interest in being a part of my life.
Yeah.
Uh, Come to find out, at that time, they weren't even talking to him either because he had did the same thing he did to me to them.
Have you ever made contact with your birth father?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's actually getting ready where I was getting to is fast forward a couple months later,
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through Facebook again. I come up to a post from that side of the family and see him on there. I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess he's back. Cool." So again, I approached my mom. I was like, "Hey, is this him?" And so there's where the struggle happened because at that time, it's kind of like that Will Smith episode. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Why didn't he love me? Why wasn't I enough? Where
right.
is he? Yeah.
Never taking away anything from any of my family whatsoever, but it hit, and I was like,
Yeah,
well,
I'm sure.
I don't know how I feel about this, and I don't know what to do. And so, again, I talked to my mom, and she's like, whatever you decide to do, I'm here. Like, okay. So I sent him a message, and I was like, first things first, I want to let you know that I'm not here to message you about any or asking you for anything. I'm not here to force you to be a part of my life if you choose not to be, but I do want to let you know that I exist and I'm your son. And that message was immediately met with, "Excuse me, who are you? Who's your mother? What are you accusing me of? Blah 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 blah." To which I simply replied, "Dude, ask your mom and your aunt or your sister. They've been talking to me for months. They know exactly who I am." So he goes and I guess he calls his mom, and sure enough, she's like, "Hey, yeah, he's your kid." And so he's like, "Oh my god, like I'm so sorry, this, that, and the third." He's like, "I just didn't know, and like I know your mom at the like, and we had this problem at the time, blah blah blah," and like trying to put it on my mom. And I was like, "Bruh, that's one thing you're not gonna do. You've not been here for 18 years. I don't need you. Nah, we're good." For me, on a personal level, I didn't get that reconciliation with that person. Um, Honestly, it didn't even last like 2 months, and then I cut him off because of the actions and words he decided to use against my mom. And if anyone knows, my mom again is my best friend, and I will ride or die and go to prison with a smile on my face. Um, if anybody badmouths her or anything, um, and he decided to go that route on one occasion, and right there I was like, "You're no longer somebody I want in my life."
He decided to trash talk your mom?
Yeah,
Why? That doesn't make any sense. You decided to walk out on us. You decided that
yeah,
you didn't want to be a father.
right.
So why do you have any pot to piss in? Not only about like just about my mom, like she raised me. Where the fuck were you?
That part, and that honestly, I'll be 100% real. That is what did it for me and told me everything I needed to know. That my mom made the
Yeah.
right choice of never forcing him to be a part of my life. And I'm a very big believer. Excuse me. If I'm ever blessed with a kid, I'm damn sure
Yeah.
not gonna make sure I'm not that guy. I'm not the way that he was.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be that I have a partner that I no longer am with at any point in time, or things just don't work out, I'm always gonna be 10 toes down for my kids. I don't care what the circumstance. You're not ever gonna take me away from my child. It's not gonna happen. But all that to say is, I actually, and I alluded to this earlier, I had a father. I had that parental role in my grandfather. And
Really?
yeah,
That's how it was for my
100%.
sister. Yeah.
100%. He was always there for me. He'd call me all the time. Mind you, he lived in Panama, so I didn't get to see him every day. But whenever he would
Yeah.
come and visit, or whenever I would go up and visit, it's like we never left and always reconnected. And we had a tradition, even as a kid, where he would take me to the horse track to go watch the horses race
Oh, I
and
love
run.
that.
And to this day, that's a core memory of mine, is staying up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, getting up at 7, falling asleep in the shower, and then getting yelled at for it, and then making it to the track on time. And him introducing me to all of his boys. Mind you, I'm talking like
Yeah.
40, 50-year-old dudes drinking some freaking rum, like just chilling. And
Now
he's
this
like,
is this is your mom's dad, right?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And we're there just chilling, and he's like, no, that's my son. He's
Oh, Wheels.
never introduced me as his grandkid. He's like, no, this is my son. And for those of y'all that know my real name, I'm named after him.
Are you really?
Yes. And this is why
Oh.
I have the tattoo on my arm of my Panamanian flag, the wheelchair symbol for my life story, and the R is for our name. So I'm gonna go ahead and just say my name is Ricardo, or Ricky.
Ricardo.
Yes.
I love that name.
Yeah. So I was named after my grandfather.
I feel like we could have like a fucking 5-hour podcast about your story. Honestly, I really feel like we could.
Yeah. I
There's so
mean,
much. There's so much to uncover here,
if you ever want me to come back, I'm more than happy to. By the way.
dude. I'll have you back. What are you talking about? I'll have you back. Well, let's tidy up like the podcast aspect of it, right? Is there
Hmm.
anything that we have not talked about that you would like to comment on?
I think not right now, because I honestly can't think of anything. I genuinely think we did cover everything that I wanted to talk about or to get out and express.
Perfect.
So thank you for that
Okay.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Now, my second question are there any questions that you had for me or my community, even though you're a part of it, or anything that you may have wanted to ask me in particular, whether it be for like the streaming aspect or the podcast aspect or whatever it is?
I actually do have a question for you, actually.
Okay. Oh God, I'm nervous.
Don't be. It's a from the heart question. What got you started into podcasting? I know a little bit about what your start to streaming is about, but what got you into podcasting specifically?
Okay. So there was actually a person in my community who talked about doing podcasts, and I was like interested in it. We were going to start doing it. And we did. We instantly we started doing it. I don't know, we just did the first episode, and then we did another episode, right? And I got some feedback from my chat and from my community and from my mods. And to be like to be completely fucking honest, right?
Hmm.
Um Troa doesn't like recognition at all whatsoever. He hates recognition. He hates when I fucking make comments about him at all ever. But Troa is a big he has a big part, right? He has a big part in my streaming journey and the updates that I've made. As far as he recommended a beacon mic and I got a beacon mic, you know,
Yeah.
he has been a huge asset to where I am and what I do. And
Right.
90% of the time he's being a dick in chat and people see the dick in chat, you know. When Troa is talking to me though, it's just me and him, like me and him understand each other, or him and I understand each other on a completely fucking different level than what everybody else sees. And he gives me some really fucking sound advice. And one of the things um that he advised me about was that he's like, you know, you're really good at the podcast aspect of this. And I've always admired Bunny, Bunny DeFord, Jelly Roll's wife. I've always admired her. I've admired her aspirations, and I've admired the fact that like she started interviewing like TikTokers and stuff. And I was like, oh
Right.
my god, like if I were to be anybody that's famous, I want to be Bunny DeFord, right?
Yeah.
But added on top of her and then Troa's comments, it just it kind of like clicked where we started intermingling, you know, more of the podcast aspect. We realized I was, as a community, as my mod team, the admin group, we realized that I was better um as a podcaster than I was at playing video games.
Yeah.
So we kind of we rolled with it, and that's where we're at now. That's why I
Love
did it.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
W Troa.
Well, thank you, Wills, so much for thank you for being part of episode 40.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, I had a great time.
I did too. Thank you.